Welcome to the Dire Wolf Show, where we believe that America is exceptional and that our constitutional rights should never be infringed. I am Dire Wolf. On our show, we bring you the truth and debunk fake news. If you love laughing at the insanity of the regressive left, sit back and relax. Boy, do I have a show for you.
Welcome back, Wolfpack. This is Fox Trevize here. I almost said Dire Wolf here because normally that's what is going on at this time. But Dire Wolf left me, like, literally as I was going to count him down, to saying, "Hey, Dire, you're about to be live," and then he just left. Sounds like he just got back, though. So.
I'm here. Welcome back, Wolfpack.
I already did that part.
God damn it! Still my line.
You left. I was going to count you down, and then you're like, you left.
Well, you told me, hey, there's some noise in the background.
Well, there was.
Okay, I'll go fix that.
But, like, that was, you've got ears.
Right. So, I was thinking to myself, can I have Restream up? At what point in this show will we be transitioning away from YouTube because of stuff that YouTube would not allow us to talk about? I'm like, look at the show. I'm like, pretty much all of this show is going to get us in trouble.
Yes. But the parts that will get us in the most trouble are after the cutoff. So this is by no means going to be a shorter show tonight, but we will have less stories and more deep dive into the stories that we do have. So That'll be fun.
Absolutely. So before we get into that, though, let's thank those who make this show possible.
You're welcome. Oh, wait. Fuck. I always do this.
You all know who you are, and you should feel guilty for this. You enabled us. You gave us the likes, the follows, the money, and you should all feel very bad about what monster you've created.
Yes.
All right. Do we actually have the list? Here we go. Yeah, so we got Haylet, Orimane, Nathan, Cameron, Tetris Freak, Slowpoke, Thundra Erican, who's female, by the way, and the White Lion. And also a special thank you to Timberwolf for your donations and boosting us on the Discord server. Much appreciated. And if you don't donate to us financially, that's fine. We just appreciate the likes, the shares, the subscribes.
Yeah, we don't have the algorithm to share us for us.
We do not.
But we have you guys, and you guys can share us for you.
We do have an algorithm that will take people away from our content, which is a nice feature.
And when you guys share us, because the algorithm isn't, there is other algorithms that will shadow ban your content. So you got that to look forward to if you support us.
Congratulations!
Yay! It's almost like it's better to not watch this show.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't blame you guys. So let's move on to the first story. So we got no funny clip. We got the Mandela effect. So we're gonna be going over some some news stories, some opinions according to the news, the Democrat left-wing news sources, and what they say is going on or what did happen compared to what we remember. Actually,
yeah, you guys all know what the Mandela effect is. That's like the Berenstein or the Berenstein Bears, or like, people think that like Nelson Mandela died before he did, or they just like remember different versions of history, and that's what the Mandela effect. When typically it can be all summed up by you're just wrong and you can't admit it, but because it's current year, we had to come up with a name for it.
In this case, we have a media that will intentionally lie to the people about what happened in the past, hoping that if you hear that lie enough times and are never exposed to the counter information, that you'll simply believe it, and thus that will become the truth.
Like, instead of some people remember Berenstein Bears and some people remembering Berenstein Bears, most people remember that Trump initiated a lockdown as soon as he heard about COVID from China, and that Nancy Pelosi was inviting people to Chinatown to have a big group celebration. But what the media believes, what they remember, is the opposite.
That is a later part of the story.
Well, I'm just giving an example.
Cool. What's another example?
Let's see here. So, border security is one where the way that the Democrats remember it is that the Democrats were always in favor of legalizing uncontrolled entry into the U.S., and that Trump is very evil for having put children into cages because he hates immigrants. And they also remember that Obama did not do any of those things.
Exactly. However, what we remember is that Democrats 8 years ago were calling for improved border barriers and better border security. They were talking about funding a wall of sorts. They said uncontrolled immigration hurt the working class and minority communities because it took away their jobs. They said that uncontrolled immigration was a bad thing. That was Nancy Pelosi, Biden, and many of the leading Democrats all were in favor of stronger border security and funding more border security facilities and officers. We also remember that Obama was the deporter-in-chief who, along with Biden, deported more illegal immigrants than any president before them, and more than Trump has. It was also Obama's policy that required criminal aliens be separated from their children when they were going through the court proceedings. That was a policy that Biden and Obama put in place and Trump ended. However, it was Trump who put kids in cages, and Trump was alone in his support for border security. You know, all the Democrats were for it, including what's his face? Bernie Sanders was for border security. It was a issue he felt very passionately about until Trump was in favor of it. Then it became a bad thing because anything Orange Man does must be bad.
You know, it's very inconvenient when people remember two different histories. If only there was some way of looking into the historical record to see which one of us was correct. Unfortunately, there's just no way to do that, so I guess we'll just have to...
Well, if you give them power long enough, they will burn all the books that show that they're wrong.
Yes. So, next, I guess, alternate history possibility is COVID-19. The way the Democrats seem to remember COVID playing out, as I was alluding to earlier, is that Trump was very slow to act on COVID-19, that he downplayed it, that he didn't think it was a big deal, and that his inaction led to the deaths of many, many people. They also seem to remember that it was Trump that had depleted the CDC resources and underfunded the CDC. They seem to remember that as well.
When in fact it was the Obama administration who did not replace the CDC resources after he had a natural disaster. It was a hurricane, and never refunded it, so they didn't rebuild up their supplies. That Trump, in reality, was the first to act, and when he did act, he called for a travel ban only a short few weeks after China finally admitted that the disease that was in their country actually was airborne and was dangerous. When Trump called for a travel ban to prevent that disease coming to our borders, Biden called him a hate monger, xenophobe. Well, Trump was warning about COVID-19. Pelosi and other Democrats were having block parties in Chinatown with no masks and no social distancing, telling people that coronavirus was a hoax and saying that Trump was being racist for calling for protective measures. They've quickly, and by quickly I mean like a month later, realized how wrong they were, and also that they could capitalize on COVID-19 by using it to hurt the economy, one of the things that Trump was doing very well, and they intentionally kept their states shut down much longer than the federal government had suggested was necessary to provide for the necessary resources to deal with COVID-19. They also seem to forget, because New York's mayor said that Trump did not provide the support he needed to deal with COVID-19. He fails to mention that Trump actually built field hospitals in his city that never got used because they never had enough patients to overwhelm the medical system.
That ship.
Yes, they had the was it the Grace? I forget what it's called.
I think it was like
the Mercy,
Hope
whatever it was.
Something.
It was a medical ship. They also had Trump gave him so many respirators that he never used them all, and then they attacked Trump for denying him an additional 3,000 respirators, even though he never used the ones he had.
Do you remember, this is a little bit off topic, do you remember the story of that guy that tried to, like, run a train, like, through, like, 100 feet of, like, not the train tracks to try and crash it into that ship? Do you remember that story?
I do not know that story.
Somebody in chat must remember that story.
That's funny.
Yes. The Infidel says in chat that he remembers the first time that Mandela died, that Bill Clinton spoke at his funeral. Also, I think was that before or after Biden visited him and also went to jail with him? Because you got to remember, Biden went to jail with Mandela for protesting, something that never happened. You don't know about that?
That did not happen.
No, I know it didn't happen. Biden said it happened. Biden said that he went to South Africa, that he protested with Mandela, and they both got sent to prison.
Did he say he also dodged enemy fire while visiting troops in the Middle East?
That's literally every single Democrat has said that, yes.
But he really did say it. I know he's not the only one, but yes. So, yeah, they remember Trump having failed to act, even though he was the first to act, and they attacked him for acting. So, and then they recently had an excerpt from a book come out saying that Trump, or was it a recording? Sorry, it was a recording. A recording saying that Trump was admitting to downplaying it early on when he was trying to make it so people didn't panic, even though the government was reacting to trying to prevent the disease coming to our shores, right? So he was telling people it's not a problem yet because it hadn't gotten a foothold in our country yet, which is true. We didn't want people to panic until, it actually was a problem here. That's not wanting people not to panic and do a run on all the stores is actually a good thing, even though he was taking the administrative acts some of the administrative acts. I do think he could have done more, but he was
and we were critical of him early on. We were critical of everything, but there was stuff going on in the background. We would have liked to see more, but they, there was certainly, as compared to the Democrats, I can only you can only compare him to what the Democrats would have done. We have Biden on record, I think in April, saying that I think it was late April where Biden finally said, "Yeah, I think that the travel ban was a good idea." But Biden also said that he would have never done the travel ban at the time. So you want to look at what the comparison is. Like, Orange Man bad, sure, but what would have been the alternative?
The same interview, Biden couldn't say what he would have done differently. The only thing he said he would have done was the same thing he criticized that Trump did. So, I mean, if you want to, I'm obviously not saying everything Trump did was good. It wasn't enough, but it definitely, what we need to compare it to is what they're saying happened. Because that's the problem. They're lying about what happened. We could say, yeah, we'd like Trump to have done more, but they're saying that Trump didn't act at all, and that in comparison, they would have acted. That's why you should vote for Biden. No, Biden would have done nothing, and eventually came around to admitting that what Trump did is what he should have done, but didn't do.
Yes. Although I don't think that they're necessarily trying to make the case that the Democrats would have acted better. I think that their exclusive case is that Orange Man bad. Like, they do not get past that ever. The media doesn't. The Democrats don't. Biden campaign does not. None of them, I really don't think any of them actually propose that they would have done it better. They just propose that Trump did it bad. And it's implied that the Democrats would have done it better, but none of them are actually claiming that.
Yeah.
So,
all right, next one.
Next one is war. What is it good for? Well, the way the Democrats remember war, it's good for soaking up F-35s. The way the Democrats remember war is that Trump is a dangerous warmonger who led us into like World War III, World War IV, and World War VI. We don't talk about World War V.
Five was too much.
It was a time war. So they remember Trump was going to cause war with China, that Trump was going to cause war with Iran, that Trump was going to cause war with North Korea, that Trump was going to cause war with Russia, even though he was in league with Russia, and he was going to go to war with ISIS, which, you guys remember ISIS? Remember that? He's going to go to war with like NATO, all this stuff. In comparison, Obama was a peacemaker, and Obama was even given the Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts in uniting the world, which is what they remember him. He did get a Peace Prize, but the way it's remembered is that he got a Peace Prize for uniting the world, when the reality is that he got a Peace Prize for being the first half-black president. And that was it.
So all Obama did to get that Peace Prize was to do. No, he had it after nine months in the presidency, and yes, the real reason was because he was historically it's a historical moment that he was the first black president, right? That's why they really gave to him. But the reasoning they gave was because he went and did a tour around the world to talk to world leaders and just negotiate about nothing. He achieved nothing. He just talked to them.
Well, it was the apology tour. It was the apology tour for America being awesome and pulling your asses out of the fire every few.
And promising that we weren't going to be great anymore, and we'd let other people, we'll atone for our sins as a country. Basically, it was the apology tour. It was embarrassing for the entire country.
He also touched the Queen. How dare he?
So that apology tour, where he actually achieved nothing, just went and met with world leaders. That's what was the justification they used for the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, Trump pulled troops out of the Middle East several times. He more accurately, he redeployed them to other places. He resisted taking military action against Iran for taking down a drone when the Democrats suggested he should have. Trump was the first president to enter the DMZ in North Korea and negotiated a peace and standardizing of relations between South and North Korea. Trump negotiated a peace between Israel and the UAE and Bahrain. Trump dealt with aggression and covert attacks from China by using our economy to punish them and change their behavior, not bombs. Trump used a targeted drone attack on an Iranian terrorist general rather than mass bombing campaigns, which resulted in a reduction in Iran's activity and attacks on U.S. forces in the region. For these reasons, Trump was nominated, these reasons and more, Trump was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize a total of 3 times, once earlier in his first term and then 2 times recently.
We also, Trevor reminds us that we also forgot about that time that Trump did a massive bombing campaign on the Kurds, just fire and fury, and it turned out to be a cropped video from an air show in Kentucky.
Yep. So in comparison, Obama expanded our military presence in the Middle East by a lot. He surged troops out there. He also in Libya, Yemen, and he negotiated peace with no one. He simultaneously dropped more bombs while also appearing to be weak by allowing Iran to capture our sailors with no response, for which he awarded them a toothless Iran nuclear deal and a plane full of money.
A lot of money.
Yeah. I'm sure that really showed them for, capturing our soldiers. They'll get money out of it, and a great deal where that doesn't restrict their nuclear development at all. Obama also left U.S. personnel to die in Benghazi and then lied to the entire country about it. And we're just supposed to forget about that. So Democrats now say that because Trump has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, that the whole Nobel Peace Prize idea should be done away with entirely.
They hate peace.
It was important. It was an important historical moment when Obama got the Nobel Peace Prize for doing nothing. But Trump getting Nobel Peace Prize for actually negotiating peace between 4 different countries now.
Yeah, it's hard to it's hard to explain to you guys like the gravity of how important those peace deals in the Middle East are. This has never happened in like the entire history of humanity, that like that region has had this kind of momentum towards not being in continuous warfare for 5,000 years.
They've never recognized Israel as a real country.
Yes. Which now means...
Not like for a certain number of years. They never have.
Yeah. I mean, it's big for a lot of reasons. We'll probably I'm sure we'll go into that more detail in the future, especially as these peace deals get some meat on the bones. Right now, they're just starting off. Don't necessarily know what they look like yet. But it is you got a lot of, I don't know. We've never seen anything like this before. There's some powerful Arab nations in the Middle East that have culture and technology, but they kind of allow and just let the terrorists run around in the rest of the desert. If they're going to now be playing around with Israel more, that means that they can handle that region on their own, and we don't need to be there to mediate it, which means that we can actually pull out, which is absolutely fantastic. And a stable Middle East is good for the whole world, because really they're the last place where things are going wrong. Like, China's trying to spin some stuff up. I think that's about it. Like, North Korea is always kind of goofy, but other than that, and then just the African warlords fighting amongst themselves, they don't really present an international threat. But really,
there's a lot of Africa in there.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about events that propose a threat internationally. The Middle East is the last place that poses a clear and present danger internationally. Certainly, we have adversaries with Russia and China, but it's far more likely that you are going to have your day-to-day interrupted by a terror attack, especially if you're in Europe, by a terror attack that was born out of the Middle East. You also have great tides of economic refugees flooding into Europe, which is just generally destabilizing the West. We get pulled down on that too. Just helping that region get stabilized, this is the way to do it, and it's never happened before. We've never ever had anything like this before, and it's entirely the Trump administration doing this. It's funny. I remember Biden, the first peace deal, Biden was trying to take credit for it, saying that they set up the preliminary part of that back in the Obama administration, which is an out and out lie.
Yeah. So Trump is actually, and his administration is the only one I've seen where their actions are actually trying to stabilize and get us out of there. Whereas previous administrations their goal has been to keep the war going, to keep fighting there because it's profitable. And I think Trump, even though he's been struggling to actually remove the troops, he's taking steps that will allow us for a long-lasting peace in the future. So that was their narrative about how dangerous he was compared to actually him being more of a peacemaker than many presidents before him.
Yes. All right, so the next story that we remember differently is Law and Order. The way that the Democrats remember it, the universe that they're from, is that Biden called out the rioting around the country.
Be gone from me, you soy boy beta cock. The transaction is complete.
I have to disagree with you guys. If the Democrats had been in power, then we would never have known about kids in cages or brew flu or any of the other bad things that have happened. The media would have downplayed or covered for them at every turn.
I don't think this is disagreed with us. I think it's kind of what we said, isn't it?
Yeah, we're the parts where we're saying what the Democrats are doing, that part's satire to remember it. It's the way the Democrats remember it is the false reality, which is what I've been saying, and then Dyer's filling in what actually happened. No, it's if the Democrats were actually in power, they wouldn't have done anything. The media would have covered for it. Probably more people would have died.
It'd be still happening today.
Yes.
Because they would still have they'd still have these policies. They're only opposed to these things because Trump is opposed to them. But they're trying they're trying to say now that they've never been for these things, even though the proof is from history is that they have, that they changed their opinions and that they're lying about what actually happened. So yeah, we're not saying that these things would be exactly the same way or that people would care if Trump wasn't president. We're just saying that they're lying about what actually happened in the past.
Yes. Let's see here. So the next one is Law and Order. So the Democrats remember that. Again, this is satirical. The Democrats remember Biden calling out the riots, the BLM riots, a long time ago, which is also funny because they also remember the riots not happening. But simultaneously, the riots never happened, and Biden called out the riots. Also, the riots that didn't happen were probably white supremacist Trump supporters. So, that's how the Democrats remember it. They also remember that Trump has never called out the far right, and that Trump has never called out white nationalists or the KKK, which is a Democrat institution, for their violent actions. And he's never condemned the murder at Charlottesville, even though he's done that multiple times. So here, the Democrats remember a right-wing person killed a left-wing protester. Presumably, I think that's Kenosha, right?
No, Churchill.
Oh, Charlottesville. And then the Biden claimed that Trump blamed... Jeez, Dyer. Biden claimed that Trump is to blame for these riots and that this is Trump's America. Again, the riots that are not happening but are also happening and they're Trump's fault.
Exactly. So, first off, I do think it's a bit silly that a Republican president should have to apologize for the Democrat KKK. Their actions, right?
Yes.
But that, as silly as that might be, Trump has, you can Google this, many times. There's compilation videos of him specifically calling out the violence and the belief system of white nationalists, the KKK, and far-right actors. He saying that that racism has, from anyone against any group, has nothing to do with the United States beliefs, and that they do not belong here. That he's been emphatic about that and multiple times said, and specifically called out the violent actors at Charlottesville. He did say that there was good people on all sides, but before saying that and after saying that, said that he's not referring to the white nationalist or KKK when he's saying that there was good people, because he's saying that there were some conservatives there and some left-leaning people there who weren't from the identitarian groups. So that's ridiculous. They are refusing to remember and are lying to the American people, saying that he never did this when he definitely did condemn those groups. So Biden and Kamala, like the left-wing media, have consistently referred to the 100 days of rioting as peaceful or ignored it altogether. When they refer to it, they usually refer to them as peaceful protest that may have been partially fiery. When they actually have been violent riots. And they actually raised millions of dollars to fund the legal defense of BLM and Antifa rioters to secure their bail so they could go back on the streets and cause more mayhem. Biden only addressed the riots in the weakest terms possible because those riots started to hurt him in the polls around day 95. The Democrats' riots have killed over 30 people and injured over 1,000 police officers alone and many more citizens. There is countless videos of the violent actions of these rioters that they pretend just didn't happen. The actions of Antifa have been supported and defended by Democrats in left-wing media for the last 5 years. I'm not just talking about the last 100 days. We're including the Battle of Berkeley and the Second Battle of Berkeley and all the other violent actions and riots by BLM and the billions, literal fucking billions of dollars of damage they've caused and the many people they've harmed. I haven't forgot Bike Lock Guy, right? I haven't forgot that we have leftist professors that are not only preaching this violence, but taking part in it. I'm not forgetting about the Melissa Click and all the other Antifa Democrats who have been committing acts of violence and censorship against conservatives during the last 5 years. These riots, and then those are never called out. Those actions were never called out. But Trump is attacked because even though he did call out the very few instances of attacks by conservatives on Democrats. But Biden and Kamala are never required to call out the individual acts, the many constant individual acts of violence by people on their side of the spectrum.
Yeah, I seem to remember, this probably just come from a different universe, but I seem to remember a Bernie bro trying to snipe a bunch of Republican congressmen. I seem to remember a far left environmental extremist mowing down a bunch of people in Texas, and then on the same day, a Elizabeth Warren supporter mowing down a bunch of people in Dayton, Ohio. And the left, I remember those being leftists that did that stuff, and then the Democrats seem to remember that those were far-right extremists. They seem to remember that eco-terrorism is a far-right position. They seem to remember that supporting Elizabeth Warren is a far-right MAGA position. So this happens a lot. Also, more recently this week, we had, the right, Dyer and I, we remember that Jacob Blake was being arrested for serially raping somebody after he broke into their house. That he had broken into their house multiple times over the last few years and raped them multiple times, and was in the process of raping them again when the police showed up. That's the way that we remember it, but Kamala Harris remembers it that that Jacob Blake was an inspiration and the face of Black Lives Matter, basically.
Yep. So the riots have only started to slow down or stop in areas where the local police have been permitted to work with the feds, where the feds were able to actually prosecute the rioters and take them off the streets. If the Democrats that have it's been the Democrats who actually called for their followers to get in the face of conservatives and harass them. It has been the Democrats who have been making open calls to violence, and even when not making open calls to violence, justifying the violence that actually happened. Them saying, oh, it's just property they're damaging, even though that's also a lie. They're actually pulling people out of their cars and beating the shit out of them. They're saying, oh, it's just property they're damaging. No, it's not just property. Insurance can't pay for all the blood, sweat, and tears you poured into your life savings you poured into a business. Nope. It's not just property. They're destroying predominantly communities, like black-owned businesses and places where minority individuals actually work and services they would use. They're destroying the communities of the people they say they care about, but they're trying to say this is Trump's America. But they're the ones allowing it.
Yep. Again, then that's another part of the contradiction is that there is this claim that, one, the riots are never happening. Two, the riots are happening, but it's Trump supporters doing it that are faking to be Antifa. And three, they're also justifying the rioters for some reason, even though they think that they're Trump supporters.
Right.
Very strange.
You can tell they're lying to you because they're constantly having to change the way they're describing reality, where Trump and those who support what he's supporting have had the same exact unwavering message, because that message is the truth. That these riots are bad, these people are criminals, and they should be in jail, and they shouldn't be allowed to destroy your community. That message has not changed and is based on reality.
Yes. Alrighty. Ready for the next story?
Yes.
Alrighty.
That was only an hour. Don't worry. We're doing fine.
It was only about 30 minutes. We did pretty good. All right. You get to start this one out.
All right. So I want to tell you guys a little story about June 1918. U.S. Marines fixed bayonets and conducted a heroic charge on a German advancing line in Bellwood, which is only about 50 miles from Paris. Paris was being evacuated. The French feared hope of stopping the Germans' advance was lost. Those cowards. This battle raged for 3 more weeks and resulted in more U.S. Marines dying in a single engagement than any war before then. The story of their bravery and that they were able to accomplish the halting of the German advance towards Paris, even though the French soldiers had abandoned the area, is revered. Their accomplishments are revered, and the land for which they died is hollow to the Marine Corps. Notably, Gunnery Sergeant Dan Daly is the U.S. Marine Corps of the U.S. Marine Corps. On the 6th of June, led his men on a charge across a wheat field under heavy German machine gun fire, and during the charge, Gunny Daly yelled out the famous words, Come on, sons of bitches. Do you want to live forever?
Awesome. Well, the French had to save those baguettes. All right, so according to The Atlantic, they put out the fallacious allegation that Trump said, quote, Americans who died in war are losers and suckers. They claim that this was in reference to these Marines that died that Dyer just described. So the claims come from, among other things, new books and leaks that are coming out from things that Trump allegedly said or did. It's all a bunch of nonsense trying to, I guess, kind of like synthesize an October surprise, but in September, where there's just a lot of fake, obviously a lot of stuff's fake, but they're just kind of like not even trying to base in reality anymore. It's just a bunch of fake things that Trump said. And they keep doing it. So like this week it was that Trump thinks that the military is a bunch of losers if you die. So specifically the claim in this instance was that the president has repeatedly disparaged the intelligence of service members. Let's see. So Trump also canceled a trip to the Veterans World War I Memorial at Bellwood near Paris that I just talked about. This trip was supposed to take place in 2018, but allegedly Trump canceled it because he said that he didn't want to go see a bunch of losers who died, and then he also didn't want to get his hair wet because it was raining. The reality though is that because it was storming, the was it Marine One, the helicopter, was not able to fly in that weather with POTUS aboard safely, so they had to cancel it. So Trump also said, why should I go to the cemetery when it's filled with a bunch of losers? And then Trump later said that the more than 1,800 Marines who lost their lives at Bellwood were suckers for getting killed. Trump has repeatedly, this is a claim, Trump has repeatedly asked to be kept out of military parades. I believe that was injured.
Keep the wounded warriors
yes.
out of.
Yes, he does not want to see. This is the claim that Trump does not want to see disabled vets in military parades. He does not want to see people with prosthetic limbs or anything like that. And then Trump has also asked, allegedly, who even was the good guys in World War I?
Yeah, so these are all things that in an article from The Atlantic that they claimed, all these ridiculous claims that Trump was disparaging U.S. soldiers, not only about Bellwood, but just many times throughout his career as president, and that he had specifically called the Marines at Bellwood losers and suckers, and that he didn't seem to know who were the good guys in World War I, and that he wanted to keep wounded warriors out of parades. These are all things that the article from The Atlantic claimed, but for what sources did they use for evidence for this article?
Well, you know and love him. He's anonymous sources. That's our favorite sources. Anonymous sources has, he wasn't getting a lot of work during the Obama administration, but he's getting anonymous sources is very well employed under the Trump administration. Anonymous sources also is sometimes known as lies. And let's see, by claiming that Trump has a history of disparaging veterans and by calling back to when Trump has criticized John McCain, Trump also called, and then in that case, Trump called John McCain a loser for getting captured, and that he was was not a war hero. Yeah, sometimes when you just like don't leave in those critical modifiers, Dyer, it changes what the sentence means.
Yeah.
This might surprise you, but John McCain, though he did suffer a lot in a Vietnamese POW camp, he was not a war hero. And Dyer's going to tell you why.
Yeah, so here's the reality. According to John McCain's own words, from a book that he wrote and published about his life, while in captivity for 5 years, he traded information about his ship, because he's from the Navy, and his squadron, because he was a Navy pilot, in return for medical treatment and better treatment while in captivity. He wrote that he very much regretted doing this, but he still did it. He also later signed a confession.
And we seem
War
to have
crimes
lost
against
Dyer. Oh, are you back?
I'm here.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You cut
Okay,
out
so
for a second.
what's the last thing here?
You reread what I got highlighted.
So he wrote that he did very much regret doing what he did, but he did do it. He also signed a letter confessing that the U.S. government and he had committed war crimes against the Vietnamese, which was then used for Vietnamese propaganda. These are treasonous acts. These are things that every service member is trained that you do not give aid or comfort to your enemy in captivity. Foyt, so he was not a war hero, and he did betray his country. He was not prosecuted for betraying his country, and even PolitiFact, when they were fact-checking this claim, they provided evidence that yes, he had traded information for better treatment in captivity, and yes, he had signed a confession to war crimes. But the issue they took was the claim is often goes along with a claim that Nixon had pardoned the 34 POWs that included McCain, but you don't do a pardon for a court-martial. Not in this case. It's not the same as a normal legal proceedings. Nixon would have just not continued with the prosecution.
Yeah, so pardoned in the colloquial sense of it was forgiven by the president is true. The specific legal definition of pardon, no, he was not pardoned, but unless you're like a grammar Nazi, which apparently Politico is, only with the Republicans, of course. But if you're a grammar Nazi or a definition Nazi, then yes, he was not pardoned, but he was forgiven of it.
Right.
Yep.
So he was forgiven. The word pardon in the legal term is incorrect. He was not given a presidential pardon.
Pardon.
Yeah. But so whether you agree or not, Trump was attacking McCain for his actions. He was a terrible senator. He did betray his country, and he was an avid opponent of Trump.
Well, he's an avid opponent of the American people. I consider, especially with what we now know about the origins of the Steele dossier and the origins of the Russian probe,
that he funded it.
Yes. Well, he was one of the ones who was helping launder some of that information into the FBI. That is, regardless if it's prosecuted or not, what we now know about the origins of the Russian probe is nothing less than an attempt to overthrow the legally elected, the duly elected president of the United States. That is treason. That is a coup. John McCain took part in that. He was no bushel of roses on his the previous years before that either. He was very much a warmonger the entire time he was in Congress. It's very strange given that he knows the horrors of it. He was as corrupt as any of your other classic crony capitalist Republicans. It's not just because the Republicans have always been like that. The Democrats are also like that. It's just the Democrats are currently the more pressing threat. But that's not to forget that the Republicans have been just as corrupt over the years, and John McCain was as steeped in that as anyone was. And then his final goodbye to America, his love letter, was to vote no on repealing Obamacare.
So you
not
could
a good
say.
Guy. So I wouldn't say that, but people say that. He's not a good guy.
So in Vietnam, you might even say that was not the only time he betrayed his country.
It was the start.
It was one of many times he put his self-interest before his duty and before his country. So the important takeaway is that they're trying to say this example of Trump having harsh words for someone who was a complete dick and also treasonous, that meant that he was opposed to and disrespectful towards military in general. Those two things do not go together. That does not mean one does not lead to the other. In reality, Trump has constantly honored wounded warriors and our service members. He has been very good to the military. He's actually fighting for the resources we need to do our job, where Biden stripped away the resources and demanded we do a job with both our hands tied behind our backs, and also the threat of a court-martial if we did our jobs right. Whereas Trump removed much of the ridiculous rules that were putting our service members in jail for defending themselves. Trump very much has shown he cares about the U.S. Troops, and also about the lie that he tried to avoid going to the cemetery in Bellwood. The records were FOIA'd, and the Navy records show it was the Navy leadership and the pilot of Marine One that canceled the trip, saying that the heavy rain made it not safe enough to transport the president.
Also, earlier in the day, Trump had visited a different, similar graveyard, correct?
Yep, correct.
Yep, so it wasn't that, like, if this was true, why would he have gone to see the first one?
It was not raining as hard at that time.
Well,
it was still raining,
I'm
though.
saying no. I'm saying if it was true that he didn't want to go to the second one because he thought they were all a bunch of losers, then why would he have gone to the first one?
No, you're right. But also, it was raining, so the argument that he didn't want to get his hair wet is also ridiculous because he just did that.
Yes,
he didn't care. So the claims are ridiculous on their head. Also, the reason why he didn't drive through Paris was his security detachment said that they didn't have enough resources to secure his route through Paris to that location.
And as we all know, Paris is very dangerous because they have a bunch of terrorists living there.
Well, if you remember correctly, that the roads in Paris were being locked down by refugees who were blocking streets and looting trucks. So
yes.
There's that. And can you imagine the news stories that would pop up if his motorcade was stopped by refugees and then they were forced to get around them?
Yes, I can imagine them.
There's a very good reason why they chose not to do that.
Oh, God,
that would not be a good look.
I bet Nancy was just hoping that would happen.
Yeah. Anyways, so that entire article from The Atlantic is a complete lie. And nothing they can say is going to make me believe that Trump disrespects the military. He shows so much respect for them. Look at these pictures. This is only a few of the many times he's honored U.S. veterans.
Yeah, these pictures are specifically chosen to refute the claim that Trump does not want to be seen with disabled vets. He does it all the time. He
constantly.
Especially does it with them. Is viewed with them.
If I had my leg blown off by a bomb, I would have a much higher chance of seeing the president.
Yes.
I'm not planning that
Alrighty.
already.
Okay. Well, we actually did pretty good at getting through the first 2 stories of 4 stories in an hour. So, not too bad. You think we can keep it up?
Yeah, we'll see. Not a pessimist or anything.
Yeah.
So I think we probably should go off YouTube. What do you think?
I agree with you.
All right. So our next story is a bit spicy.
Yes.
So YouTubers, all 6 of you over there, go to the link below and join us on DLive because YouTube will not let us talk about some subjects. They will destroy our channel. It's already demonetized. How much more destroyed can it be?
I put a link in YouTube chat, and then there's also a link in the description. So.
And the 2 of you watching us on Twitch, you could stay there, no problem. You're fine.
Yes.
You can also be live if you want.
Yes. All right.
All right.
So,